No, Biden demanded a ceasefire in his call with Prime Minister Netanyahu, even gave him an ultimatum: protect civilians and foreign aid workers in Gaza. Well, now House Republicans next week want to rebuke that call. What's the strategy here?
There is no strategy.
There is no strategy.
No, there is, for Republicans here, there is no strategy. But I think what we're seeing is a recognition of a change in how we view our relationship with Israel. Immediately after October 7th, Biden came out and he doubted the numbers that the Gaza Health Ministry put out. Washington Post had to come out and say, well, no, they've actually been on point with a number of those. So what we're seeing here with the Israel blocking humanitarian aid, we're up to now 30,000 plus deaths.
Yeah.
It is hard to justify and sustain that. So it doesn't matter what House Republicans do. So what? You want any type of resolution, they can do that anytime. But I think that this is a recognition that the relationship, because Benjamin Netanyahu has given the Biden administration the middle finger, a number of times, and that is not sustainable, which explains why Chuck Schumer came out and gave that statement on the House.
On the Israel-Hamas war, he said on a radio show, to get it over with fast. That's the quote. Is that resonating with Republicans? Malik?
I actually think that is, and it kind of dovetails into the conversation about Ukraine. Donald Trump has always been on the other side, even on some within his own party, on Ukraine funding. And I think what we're saying in this current conversation around foreign policy, people are beginning to ask about the United States investment in our foreign affairs. And so I think that that is something. Donald Trump obviously is going to take a bunch of pot shots at Joe Biden because he has the benefit of not being president. I'm not convinced he would do anything much different than Joe Biden, but I imagine that what he would articulate, at least the PR component of that, and that's what he said about Netanyahu. Your PR is bad here, and you can't get around that.
Malik and Michael, gentlemen, don't go too far. Thank you for this discussion.
Top concern for so many. What does that say about the mood of this country when it comes to border security, Malik?
Well, I think it's a serious thing. One of the very first things when Joe Biden got in office, he kind of poo-pooed over the idea that there was a crisis at the border, and many within this administration followed up to that. But when you started seeing the amount of human trafficking, we talk a lot about just the security aspect of it, but the amount of fentanyl, the amount of human trafficking that's occurring at the borders, and we're seeing that those border towns that were typically get a lot of their migrants, when they started moving up, like to Chicago and New York, people like, whoa, 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 wait a minute here. And I think that's what it is. And that's why I'll continue to say it isn't a hatred of immigrants. It is, unfortunately, a function of our dysfunctional system. And people are really
weeks to send those impeachment articles to the Senate, barely had enough votes to do so the first time. If this fails, how will this reflect on Republican leadership?
I think it will reflect negatively. And the reason that we got here is that a number of Republicans, even when Kevin McCarthy was in the speakership role, they wanted him to do these very things. So impeachment against Joe Biden, impeachment against Mayorkas. I can just say this. I don't like, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, that you're going to impeach a member of another, president's administration. I think that it's warranted if you want to do that at the presidential level. But when we get to a point now that we're impeaching members of a cabinet, that is such a slippery slope, and I don't like that. But Republicans aren't going to win a single thing out of this, but they had to do it.
Why do you think they felt they had to do it?
Well, because there were people pushing them from the right on these very things. The reason that Kevin McCarthy is gone is because Kevin McCarthy was not willing to do some of these things. But as we're going to have a conversation about Mike Johnson, this is what he got, because this was part of the deal in order to get the job. So they have to do it to save face, but it's just not going to be any benefit to the party.